Hi, good morning. Thank you for showing up today, even though it is a difficult day to show up because of what happened yesterday and what's going on every day, not only in this country but throughout the world. I thought, we should bear witness for maybe 30 seconds to these beautiful children, 19 children, and their 2 teachers were killed yesterday in Texas. So for about 30 seconds, let us send them some love. Yeah, it's just amazing. Why would anybody touch children this beautiful? And is there a reason why humans hurt humans to start with? It's just very confusing to the psyche, trying to make sense out of nonsense situations. So I decide to, rather than focus on hate and dissect the problem, because the problem is very clear, that let us talk about solutions today and continue to refuse that humans are basically ugly, because I believe there is lots of beauty that we can offer one another. But we cannot talk about beauty without talking about ugliness. We cannot talk about the light before eliminating the darkness. So I thought maybe I share a few stories with you, and they have to do with the systemic issues, because today we're going to talk about the impact of our systems on our burnout and how can we tackle systemic trauma. So I was mentioning to the group before you that one of my coworkers, she's a new mom, and the new mothers, they need frequent breaks to go and take care of their body and their baby and so on. If the system will shame her for being a new mom or refuse to give her the time to take care of her needs, it will be very difficult for her to continue to be a caregiver. And another one, actually in the state of Utah, she as a recent graduate, and she told me, Omar, do you believe that when I went to my interview, they asked me, are you sexually active? They said, what the heck would they ask that question? And she said, because they want to make sure I don't get pregnant. If I am pregnant or a new mom, then I'm not fit for the job. So this is happening here in the year 2022 in the greatest country in the world, yeah? So unfortunately, some of our coworkers go through many traumatic experiences that we don't know of because of their gender or gender orientation or skin color or religion, whatever it is, background that they might be quote-unquote different than the mainstream. The system will shame them for that. And we need to really speak up for them, especially if they don't feel safe speaking up for themselves. So I will give a few examples of how we can do that. And we can do it safely and using our privilege. So if you don't think that you're going to be safe, if there is a retaliation, which is very unfortunate because a system that's trauma-informed should never condone retaliation for speaking up. At the same time, if you feel that you're going to be hurt, make sure that you take care of yourself too. So do it as safely as you can using your privilege. I happen to be a physician, so it's very easy for me to go and challenge authority. And we Libyans are very well known for being rebellious, and we can't challenge anything. So few things that happened that made me use my privilege, and some of my coworkers found it to be helpful for them. I have a coworker who lost her best friend. Her best friend died in Texas because of the COVID, and she went to ask for time off so she can attend the funeral, and they said, no, you cannot take a time off because it's a friend, it's not family member. You cannot use your grief time to grieve non-family member. So we had a discussion with leadership, and eventually she was able to take that time off, and she told me she appreciated that I used my privilege that day to speak on her behalf. Another coworker, he was quite restless, and I said, what happened? And he said his mother-in-law just died. He received a text message, a phone call that he needs to go and attend her funeral in Ohio. And I said, okay, go. And he said, it's not that easy. Most of our problems are not clinical, they are bureaucratic. The system can block you from doing things that are very, very important for you. Being a mother, getting pregnant, celebrating a best friend. So he was very restless, and I said, just go. And he said, who will take care of my patients? I have a caseload. I said, I'm going to take care of it. He said, how about if they call me from the emergency room? I said, ask them to page me. So he was able to fly to Ohio, attend the funeral. And maybe that's the best thing you can do, to bear witness. And if you are able to, just ease somebody's way and eliminate some of that burden, that will be wonderful. Sometimes our coworkers, they face racism and discrimination because of different backgrounds that they have. I remember coming from the Islamic and Arabic faith, and that was very, very common that to hear that you are a terrorist or go back home, or all of these unfortunate titles that I was given. And I'm not necessarily obviously Muslim, but my wife, because she wears the hijab, she is an easy target too. And sometimes she just uses dark humor to try to defend herself. It is her coping and defense mechanism. If somebody tells her, hey, are you not hot under that thing? And she would say, duh, that's why I wear it, because I am very hot. So even though it's humor, it is exhausting humor. To be on the receiving end of hate and just use a humor to deflect somebody who's hateful or bigot is not really fun. I remember even in Anaheim taking them to Disneyland, and I was in the conference and they were enjoying themselves in the happiest place on earth. And somebody said, oh, here we go, terrorists everywhere, even here in Disneyland. So you can ruin somebody's vacation, their time off, when you really are not considerate, if you are hateful, if you decide to just believe a narrative that was dictated on you by the media or by some kind of agenda. So I know that we try to see God's face in every face, and we do that when we actually practice what we preach. So it's very important for me. These topics are very dear and near to my heart, and that's why I brought even some chocolate. And this chocolate is not free. There's nothing free in America. So I want you to pick your favorite piece of candy, and before you eat it, let us have some discussion. Okay? I will ask you a few questions about that piece of candy. And while you are picking, there are 8 different kinds of candy I brought today. So just pick the one that appeals to you. I happen to, whenever I go to the airport, I go to Alaska Airlines, because my experience with Alaska has been consistently positive. But that will eliminate other airlines that might offer more exotic options. So if I just limit myself to Alaska, I might limit my options. So that's why I try to now be more comfortable out of my area of comfort. And I will ask you a few questions. Looks like we are almost, everybody have their piece of candy. But I want you to answer me, why did you pick that specific piece of candy? Why not one of the other 7 kinds? Okay, there are 8 different kinds of candy. You chose one, there is a reason. Can you share that reason with us? Anybody want to give it a shot?
My favorite.
It is your favorite, why?
My favorite candy. I don't know, the perfect blend of peanut butter and chocolate.
Okay, so it has a nice texture, nice.
Yeah, my childhood, it was my mom's favorite.
Okay, so here we go. There are memories also associated with that, family tradition. Mm-hmm.
Because I had this before and I liked it, and I don't know the other ones.
Wonderful. So you chose the familiar, even though you have unfamiliar options. So many people, they say, it is the safe option. I know it is delicious, so why should I try something else? Okay, how about, looks like we are almost there, everyone. Anybody else want to share why did you pick that candy? Anybody picked a candy that they have not tried before? No? So everybody, you opted for the familiar because it's safe. Sometimes we do that a lot. So I gave you 8 different pieces of candy on a table, and you did not reach out to 7 out of 8 because they are unfamiliar, or maybe because you feel safe with one of them. And if that's the case with your coworkers or your clients or your community members, if you don't reach out to a refugee or somebody who doesn't speak the language or they practice their religion in a different way, you're going to miss out on lots of beauty and deliciousness, because some of these candies are much better than the one that you chose. I would argue that, because my favorite candy, I did keep it to myself. Thank you very much. It is somewhere here. Yeah. Anybody can argue with this? No? So really, I mean, if you reach out only for the familiar things, you might miss out on beauty with the other things. And nobody asked me, hey, Omar, how come Ferrero Rocher was not represented on the table? So if somebody is not at the table, ask why. If you are talking about somebody, especially people from different backgrounds, and you try to solve their issues, and they are not at the table, then you are not going to solve their issues. People will solve their own issues if they are empowered to be part of the solution. If we continue to see them as only part of the problem, then we are part of the problem too. So I thought I'd start with some of the big issues that we face in a system, but I'm sure there are much more worse things, that caseloads, maybe taking care of the electronic chart before you take care of your patient. There are many things that will add to our burnout, but we try to continue to focus on beauty, even though sometimes beauty seems too far away. Like this morning seems very doomy and gloomy and ugly. So I decided, I'll show you the pictures of the children to remember that they are beautiful children, that you send them some love. I remember like in March of 2019, I was invited as a keynote speaker at a conference that talks about impact of hate and bigotry on mental health. So it was in Winnipeg, Manitoba. So I went to Canada, and 20 minutes before my speech, somebody walked into a mosque in New Zealand and opened fire, killing 51 people. So they told me, Omar, you have to talk about that. 20 minutes before I prepared my speech and everything. And I remember another speaker at the conference, she said, I appreciate people's prayers and your tears are wonderful. Thank you for your sympathy. But that does nothing to change the narrative or dismantle the structures of hate. So yes, it is wonderful that we show compassion towards others, but it has to be compassion into action, and do that as safely as you can, of course. Like, I remember also, when my wife was giving a speech as an interfaith event, the ladies in the church, they said, wow, we are very impressed. What can we do to support you? Can we wear the hijab for one day, or can we go to the airport and welcome a new refugee family? And she said, will you take a bullet for me? And you can hear dead silence in the room. And they said, can you tell us more? She said, if you are not willing to take a bullet for me, that means you value your life more than mine, and you value your children's life more than these 19 beautiful kids. So yes, I'm not asking you to risk your life for others, because we have seen what happened with even here in Portland with the MAX train, how we lost 2 people because they spoke up on behalf of others. At the same time, if you can, do it safely using your privilege. Please don't hesitate to do that. You can change somebody's outcome or even save their life. Okay, never underestimate the impact of your words on others. Our words can destroy or actually build someone. Make sure that you focus on the human connection. Sometimes your coworker or maybe even yourself need more professional help, and there is nothing wrong with that. Seeking mental health counseling is not a sign of weakness. It's actually a sign of courage, and I hope it will become part of the culture eventually, that we build safe spaces so people can just talk about their emotions and break the cycle of stigma. So some of these signs, if people are not showing interest in the things that they're interested in before, they're losing weight, they're maybe gaining weight because of overeating. They are losing sleep or sleeping more than they should, neglecting their activities of daily living, having hallucinations, delusions, psychotic symptoms because of severe depression, thinking about lethal means or talking about ending their life, even saying it's not worth it anymore. Take that very seriously. It's very difficult to verbalize our discomfort as caregivers. So if someone is showing a change in language or behavior or moral values, please reach out to them. Don't be intrusive, but don't be neglectful either. All of us, we can use the 5C of recovery. So commitment, intentionally commit to taking care of yourself, reach out for connection, social support, cope with your difficult feelings by talking about them, practicing lots of self-care. We talked about that yesterday, doing self-care in isolation, but also doing it as team, so building a community of care, and claiming your own story. I told you there are different stories that were thrown at me and my wife and my children, but we decided we're going to just write our own story. And literally, I wrote my story. That's why the Wounded Healer book is finally published. And chapter number 4 talks exclusively about our trauma as a family and how we decided to heal from that. So if there is a dysfunction in your family because of trauma, don't accept that as a status quo. There is nothing normal about family dysfunction. You can improve or heal the relationship with your family if you start to implement small things like eye contact with them, smiling at them, spending quality time. Even if you don't have the quantity, make sure every time you spend with your loved ones is a quality time. I take my 3 daughters on dates, and maybe some of you have already checked the YouTube channel that we built together called the Daughter-Father Bonding Project. The 3 of them are teenagers now, and I cannot afford not to have a relationship with my children, because if they don't find their father to give them love, I don't want them to find love somewhere else that maybe the wrong type of love. Okay, our families are essential. Our communities are essential. Our partners, the best thing you can do for your children is to value your partner or the other father. If you can love them, great. If there is a relationship damage, maybe you can heal it. If you guys already healing is not possible, at least try to do that away from the children. They don't deserve to witness domestic violence and abuse and so on. Make sure that you do that immediately. So don't delay bonding with your family. Delaying bonding with them will risk never bonding with them. So do that today. Because of what happened yesterday, just spend more time with your loved ones this evening. And the shortest way to children mind and is to really reach their heart. So don't focus on the perfection, focus on the connection. Many times we give them lectures and we think they are spoiled, and we call them all kinds of names, but they are missing just that connection. They are missing social skills that we can build together. So your family is very important. Your co-workers also. We have shared a number of stories that show you that maybe they're going through some trauma inside and outside their places of employment. I remember immediately after that 2016 election, somebody put America will be great again in my mailbox. I'm like, okay, what can I do with this piece of paper? So I called my wife and she said, oh, you have to call the FBI. I'm like, hey, take it easy. I mean, there is like a mechanism. I should talk to my supervisor maybe and investigate what happened, maybe just see the camera who came to my mailbox. And it turned out that one of the staff thought that was a show of support. She said, you also belong in America, and we love you, and America is great regardless of who is the president and stuff like that. So sometimes this show of support, if you don't really talk to someone about it, it can be intrusive, can be hostile, can be dismissive. So if you want to support someone, don't take the podium away from them. If you want to empower a community, don't come across as the savior or the expert that knows everything. Okay, so we can talk about children trauma. We talked about that yesterday and the day before. Many times they don't have the words to express their trauma. They express their feelings through behavior. Don't punish your children behavior. Don't send them on a time out. Try to bring them into a time in, listen, and deeply listen with the desire to understand. And if you have a distorted trauma story, if your trauma story is ugly, you don't have to pass it to your children. Don't continue the cycle. We do that through either being abusive and violent, and they walk on eggshells around us, or actually by shutting down, and they will walk on eggshells around us. So I told you yesterday, we think that we are protecting our family from the burden by being silent, and our silence is the burden that affects them. So try to talk to them. Of course, you don't share every graphic detail of your trauma with the little children, but at least make your home a safe space for emotional expression. There is a whole chapter in the book about how to turn your house into home, and house becomes a home when there is safety between the family members. Love is not supposed to hurt. Today we're talking about systemic trauma. We talked about some examples already. So one of the examples is thinking that there is unspoken contract between me and Adventist. If I'm falling apart or burning out, somebody will come and check on me. Well, guess what? If you don't check on yourself, nobody will. Not because they don't care about you, but they also are burning out. Everybody has a heavy caseload. Everybody is stretched thin. So please prioritize your own self-care. The 3 points that we're going to hopefully turn into a leaflet, hopefully by tomorrow, is just remember 3 things out of this whole training. The first thing is to recognize how important you are. You are the foundation of this system. So recognize your value. The second thing is verbalize your needs. If you don't speak up, nobody will speak up on your behalf. And the third thing is prioritize your self-care. If you don't take care of yourself, you're not good for your clients or for your loved ones. So I know I'm asking you a lot by leaning on one another and checking on your coworker, even though you have already patients to take care of and you have family at home. But believe it or not, it might take an extra minute that will change the outcome for everybody involved. So I have seen it with my own eyes, the impact of checking on one another. And as I said, today our main message, if you believe in God or high power, whatever it is, that you celebrate diversity and make sure that there are trauma that happen within and outside the system, because of the system and beyond the system. People are traumatized everywhere. So send them love and compassion and continue to see God's face in every face. So I think I'll stop here and open it up for discussion.